Herb. Herb is a plant. I mean, herbs are good for everything. Herb.
Welcome to Eugene Cannabis TV. You got your host, Dank. We got episode 773 for you. We've got some interesting stories I got off the internet, information I want to pass along. But I need to read a statement I haven't read for a while, and I just want to point out a little bit about the show. I want to say thanks for taking the time to watch Eugene Cannabis TV. It's a labor of love for us to produce this show. It's not only a labor of love for the plant, cannabis, but a labor of love for to be able to communicate to others about this incredible plant. Many thanks to the Community Television 29 group for providing the means to produce this show. We definitely encourage you to look into joining the Community Television 29 organization. It's a lot of fun and you get to meet some great people. So let me get into the stories here. The first one is dated July 20th this year. It was on the salon.com website, written by Matthew Rosa. Weed vapes probably sending a toxic gas to your lungs, study shows. Ever since vaping overtook traditional smoking as a culturally preferred method of inhaling nicotine and marijuana, vaping proponents have vigorously challenged the claims of various health risks associated with e-cigarettes. In particular, critics have noted, and advocates have struggled to defend, the rising victim tally for EVALI, a disease with an acronym that spells for itself e-cigarette or vaping product use associated lung injury. The challenge for health experts has been acquiring precise biochemical information about the effect of vaping on the body. Now a new study by Portland State University's Robert Strongen, doctoral student Kalis Munger, and Robert Jensen reveals that when cannabinoid acetates in marijuana vaping products are heated under vaping conditions, they create a toxic gas called ketene. In their study, the researchers studied how much ketene was produced from a single puff of vaping products. They focused on certain cannabinoid acetates, like the delta-8 THC acetate, which is not regulated by the FDA and is believed to make the high from vaping more potent. They discovered that ketene is formed at lower temperature settings than previously believed, and that it accumulated at levels dangerous to individual health. And as Munger explained in a university press statement, people who use these products likely smoke them for more than a single puff. The thing we're most concerned about is prolonged exposure. We don't know what that is, Munger explained. That's why papers like ours are needed. Otherwise, people would be exposing to this really toxic substance, and it's really impossible to look for the evidence. The American Chemical Society describes ketene as a colorless toxic gas with permeating odor, and a 2020 study from the scientific journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences of the United States of America found that ketene has been reported to cause acute lung damage when studied in animals. Their study laid the groundwork for this one by establishing that vitamin E acetate reacts when aerosolized with an e-cigarette to produce the highly toxic gas ketene derived. Although the researchers added that confirmation that vitamin E acetate derived ketene was a causative agent of EVALI, which must wait rigorous clinical investigation. Although ketene ketone is known as to be toxic. It is so dangerous that it is difficult directly to study its effect on the human body. There is a current trend towards the chemical modification of legal cannabis products to create semi-synthetic cannabinoids with enhanced properties. Strongin explained to Solomon by email. He pointed out that this is not inherently dangerous. Some of the resulting products may not actually have elevated health risks. However, it would be obvious to any responsible chemist that the modification of cannabinoids to their corresponding acetates for vaping will create molecules with a substructure highly similar to that found in vitamin E acetate. Strongin pointed out. Vitamin C acetate still remains the strongest suspect causative agent in the E-Valley outbreak. Moreover, evidence has reported in 2020 that showed vitamin E acetate released ketone emissions from a commercial e-cigarette. Strongin concluded regulators, customers, and those in the industry interested in harm reduction need to be made aware, unfortunately, that there are people creating predictably risky products and making them readily available. So, I don't know what to think. I don't use one anymore myself, but as soon as the e-cigarette thing came out, I just decided to stay away from them completely myself. But anyway, I just wanted to put that out there in case anybody's still using them, and I want to keep that in mind. Then we have the study published on Yale Journal shows cannabis provides immediate relief for symptoms of depression and other mental health issues. This is one of those things where you read it and you look at it and you think, we already knew this, but now it's coming out officially. This is written by Jawar Hassi, October 9th, 2022, and it was in the bazinga.com website. According to a research study published by the University of New Mexico and Relief app in the Yale Journal of Biology and Medicine, cannabis flower may be effective in providing immediate relief for the symptoms of depression, a condition roughly affecting 1 in 5 adults in the U.S. and often leading to other ailments like cancer, substance abuse disorders, anxiety disorders, schizophrenia, dementia, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and chronic pain. I got about 3 of those myself. The findings suggest that at least in the short form, the vast majority of patients that use cannabis experience antidepressant effects, although the magnitude of the effect and the extent of side effect experiences vary with chemotypic properties of the plant. Now, in the research, a study titled "The Effectiveness of Cannabis Flower for Immediate Relief from Symptoms of Depression" was led by the founders of the University of New Mexico's Marijuana Research Fund, Jacob Vigil, Psychological Associate Professor. I don't want to go through these names to save time, but after reviewing 5,876 outcomes reported anonymously by 1,819 individuals, tracking their cannabis use for treating depression through the Relief ad, that's R-E-L-E-A-F, Relief app, the researchers concluded that on average, patients reported an improvement of symptoms by nearly 4 points out of a scale of 0 to 10, just moments after consuming whole dried natural cannabis flower, widely known as cannabis buds. By means of comparison, readers should know that conventional pharmaceuticals used for the treatment of the symptoms of depression, like monoamine oxidase inhibitors, tricyclic antidepressants, and selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and select neopinephrine. Normally take several weeks or even months to start causing significant relief. However, the study notes that the potential side effects associated with these pharmacological products include sedation, agitation, anxiety, agoraphobia, demotivation, and suicidal ideation. One of the more interesting findings from the study is that cannabis flower with relatively high levels of THC, is particularly associated with immediate reductions in the intensity of depressive feelings, said Jacob Michael Vigil. The differences in time to effect and negative side effect prevalence across products and users could arise from other antidepressants and synthetic compounds in the plant beyond THC or cannabidiol, CBD, including minor cannabinoids, terpenes, and flavonoids. Further detail, so the per study, most of the patients using cannabis flower products to treat their depression symptoms reported antidepressant effects. However, the magnitude of these effects and extent of experiencing side effects varied alongside the properties of each plant. The investigators also discovered that up to one in 5 individuals who used cannabis flower containing high levels of THC experienced some negative side effects, such as feeling unmotivated. Having said this, the report adds individuals in the study were 3 times as likely to experience positive effects like happiness, optimism, peacefulness, and relaxation. Over the past few years, it is becoming clear that individuals using Relief app are tracking their mental health symptoms in more detail to better understand how cannabis may help provide them with relief. Keenan Killing, CEO of More Better, the company behind Relief app. Historically, we see cannabis efficacy studies related to chronic physical ailments such as pain, cancer, and epilepsy. It is becoming increasingly important and relevant to better understand how cannabis affects mental health disorders like depression. With no end to the depression epidemic in sight, and given the limitations and potential severe negative side effects of conventional antidepressant medications, there is a real need for people to be able to treat mood disturbances with natural, safe, and effective medications, and cannabis checks off all 3 boxes, concluded Vigil. So, there you go. I know my experience in dealing with medical patients that one of the problems with medical marijuana is that people that are taking drugs for mental issues they feel so much better with the cannabis that they end up stop taking their prescription because they're feeling so much better. Like, well, I don't need this. I don't need this stuff. So they try to stop the prescriptions, and some of that stuff you cannot quit immediately. You have to taper off, so they end up getting into trouble because of that. But it's just a little something to be aware of and to think about. But anybody that deals with much of cannabis and patients know the effects of what cannabis can do for patients, and it's always amazed me, and it still continues to amaze me. And that's what's killing things. It's kept me motivated to keep fighting for all these years for cannabis. It's like one of my T-shirts says, it's not just a plant. Welcome back to the second half of episode 773, and we're looking. Got some stories here that I picked off the internet pertaining to cannabis. This one here was on the bazinga.com website, dated October 10th, 2022, by Nina Zinjak, and they're titled "Cannabis Can Cause a Permanent Drop in Intelligence," claims protecting South Dakota kids railing against legalization. South Dakota residents will decide in November whether or not to support adult use cannabis legalization in a vote for or against Initiative Measure 27, which will be on the ballot. Moving closer to elections, Groups opposing marijuana legalization are lobbying hard. Last Thursday, the grassroots organization Protecting South Dakota Kids presented a panoply of negative results they believe legalization would usher in, reported the Aberdeen News. Representatives for the organization, including its chairman, Jamin Kenyon, retired Highway Patrolman Ed Moses, and Karen Cricket Palmer, attended the event at the Sacred Heart Catholic Church. Cannabis can cause a permanent drop in intelligence, claims Protecting South. Yeah, I just read the headline. South Dakota residents will decide in November whether or not to support adult use cannabis legalization, and vote for or against in issue 27. I'm repeating myself again. See, last Thursday, the grassroots organization Protecting South Carolina Kids. Oh, I'm sorry about this. Moses began the meeting with several statistics about marijuana legalization, such as increase in teen consumption, higher rates of cream vomiting. I'm not sure what cream vomiting is, but cream vomiting, which some states have reported, negative effects on brain functioning caused by long-term use. Children are not protected with this, Moses said, also expressing concerns about medical marijuana, which was legalized some 2 years ago. It can cause permanent drop in intelligence, Moses said. It also interferes with the exchange of information between neurons. Moses referred to several studies that claim marijuana can cause a drop in IQ, higher rates of psychosis, and mental health disorders. Following the presentation, Scott Shewich, Measure 27 campaign manager, told American News that while the passage of the measure would make recreational marijuana legal, it is up to the states to create laws governing sales and to regulate the industry. We don't create an industry, we make it legal, he said. Find me one person in the state that says the South Dakota legislature is going to pass relaxed legislation for edibles. Seawich noted that most of the arguments against legalization are emotional and anecdotal, although he recognized health risks exist. Cannabis can have negative effects in the long term, but it's less harmful than alcohol. You can't die from cannabis poisoning, he said. Others agree. Others agree against cannabis. Protecting South Dakota Kids presentation came several weeks after two Sioux Falls officials insisted that cannabis legalization promotes crime and violence. Mayor Paul Tenhecken referred to 3 myths from cannabis supporters of Measure 27. He disagreed that state prisons are full of people with cannabis convictions, contending that crime would not drop if marijuana was legal, but rather the opposite would occur. Tenhagen noted that the black market is flourishing even in places where marijuana is legal. Why would you, as someone with a legal cannabis license, how can you compete against someone who says, I'm going to bypass the laws, I'm going to bypass the permits, I'm going to bypass all the other things and just grow illegally? I don't have to pay taxes, the mayor said. Tenhaken also touched on the issue of revenue, insisting that communities are not seeing any benefit from cannabis sales. Any revenue that is realized is used to deal with the unintended consequences, treatment issues, crime issues that are for the result of legalization. So it's the same kind of arguments that we hear all the time when people are against legalization. I remember one of the things they were against medical marijuana is because he said it would be more kids would be smoking marijuana, and as it turned out, after the medical marijuana laws were passed, teenage consumption actually went down. So it's always fun to see things just the opposite of what our opposition says it's going to do or going to be. And there's next story is from the eatthis.com website, dated again October 10th, 2022, by Heather Nugan. Side effects of smoking too much marijuana, say doctor. There's no doubt that medical marijuana has significant health benefits. It's been well proven that marijuana can help treat symptoms of cancer patients going through chemo, as well as relieving pain and nausea from Crohn's disease, reducing seizures in certain severe epileptic conditions, and more. That said, smoking too much can cause negative side effects, said Dr. Tom Mitchell, a board-certified family physician with holistic wellness strategies. Here's 5 ways marijuana can impact your life. Before using medical marijuana, please always consult with your physician. Marijuana stats. Dr. Mitchell tells us, while marijuana smoking is certainly not as common as cigarette smoking, many people still regularly partake in this activity. In fact, according to a recent study, an estimated 16% of Americans smoke marijuana. While most people who have tried marijuana do not go on to become regular users, there is still a significant minority who smoke regularly. For many people, marijuana smoking is a way to relax and unwind after a long day. Others use it as a means of coping with anxiety or stress. Whatever the reason, it is clear that marijuana smoking is still reasonably common in the United States. While there is no definitive answer to this question, some general guidelines can be useful in determining whether or not someone is smoking too much marijuana. First, it is essential to consider the frequency at which one uses the drug. One who smokes a day or a couple times a week may smoke too much. Second, it also is essential to look at the amount of marijuana consumption each day it is used. Those who smoke large quantities of the drug at once may smoke too much. Finally, it is also important to consider the effects that marijuana use has on one's life. Those experiencing negative consequences due to their use, such as problems with work or school, may be considered smoking too much. Lung cancer. Dr. Mitchell explains, marijuana smoke contains many of the same harmful chemicals as tobacco smoke, including carcinogens. While the jury is still out on whether smoking marijuana increases your risk of lung cancer, there is evidence that it can contribute to other respiratory problems such as bronchitis and lung infections. Additionally, marijuana smokers tend to inhale more deeply and hold their breath for longer than tobacco smokers, which increases the amount of tar and other toxins that reach the lungs. Given these factors, it's not surprising that marijuana smoking has been linked to an increased use of lung problems. As a regular marijuana smoker, you must be aware of the potential risks and take steps to protect your lungs. For example, quit smoking or switching to a less harmful method, such as vaping, that can reduce your risk of developing lung problems. Increased use of heart attack. Dr. Mitchell states, marijuana smoking has been shown to have similar effects on the cardiovascular system as tobacco smoking. Both marijuana and tobacco smoke contain harmful chemicals that can damage the lining of the blood vessels, leading to the inflammation and the increased risk of heart disease. In addition, marijuana smokers tend to inhale more deeply. I went through that. Therefore, it's important to be aware of the potential cardiovascular risks of marijuana use, especially if you have a history of heart disease in your family. Increased use of mental health problems. According to Dr. Mitchell, some studies have shown a correlation between smoking marijuana and developing mental health problems. This is believed to be because of the active ingredient in marijuana, THC, which can negatively impact the brain. The THC has been shown to change how the brain processes information, leading to memory, learning, and decision-making problems. Additionally, THC can interfere with how the brain regulates stress and anxiety, exacerbating existing mental health conditions or causing new ones to develop. For these reasons, it's essential to be aware of risks associated with smoking marijuana, especially if you are already struggling with mental health issues. Impaired brain development. Regular marijuana use can impair brain development, particularly in young adults. It is well known that smoking marijuana can negatively affect the brain, Dr. Mitchell emphasizes. For example, studies have shown that it can impair memory and learning and reduce reaction time. Recent research also suggested that smoking marijuana may be linked to problems with brain development. One study found that people who smoked marijuana regularly during adolescence were more likely than non-users to experience a decrease in size of the hippocampus, a region of the brain critical for memory and learning. Frequent marijuana use was associated with reduced efficiency of the connectors between brain regions involved in learning and memory. With more research it's needed to confirm these findings. These suggest that smoking marijuana may be harmful to brain development, especially during adolescence. It is, as a result, people need to be aware of the potential risks before deciding to smoke. Legal problems. Dr. Mitchell says even though marijuana is becoming increasingly legalized across the United States, several risks are still associated with its uses. Some of the most significant dangers is the potential for legal problems in states where marijuana is not yet legalized. Possessing even small amounts of drug can lead to arrest and prosecution. Furthermore, because marijuana is still classified as a Schedule I substance by the federal government, it is possible to face federal charges even if possession is legal in your state. Additionally, marijuana use can result in impaired driving, leading to accidents and injuries. Therefore, knowing the potential legal risks associated with marijuana use is essential before deciding to smoke. Dr. Mitchell says that this doesn't constitute medical advice, and by no means are these answers meant to be comprehensive. Rather, it is to encourage discussions about health choices. So we can take it with that vein, and I hope this information that I brought to you this evening or today is helpful. So we're always looking for guests. I'd love for you to come on and tell your cannabis story. Get a hold of us, and we try to shoot once a week, and we encourage people to come in and tell their story. Hopefully you can help somebody else. Somebody else could hear your story and then realize, hey, I'm not the only one that thought that had that thought or that experience. So anyway, we'll see you next week, and I'll be here, and I hope you